Should our church close or should we revitalize? That is the question today on the Church Revitalization Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast, brought to you by the Malphurs Group team, where each week we tackle important, actionable topics to help churches thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Scott Ball and A.J. Mathieu.
Welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast. My name is Scott Ball. I'm joined by my friend and co-host, A.J. Mathieu.
Top of the morning to you.
Yes, it is the afternoon, but I appreciate that. This is the Church Revitalization Podcast. And so, we don't often do episodes. I don't want to say we've never done it. I sometimes will go, we've never done an episode on this. But I know that this isn't something that we talk about regularly, sort of closing churches, or merging them, or different things we can get into later. But this is comes from yet another user question. We got several variations of the same question, which was, when do we know if it's time to just kind of throw in the towel and say, we tried, but it's over, we need to close the doors? We're going to get into that today.
Yeah, it's obviously this is not a happy topic. If a church is reaching this point, we're having this conversation internally, and we've had these calls. We've taken many of these calls. We've worked with some of these churches. We've not worked with some of these churches. So I think as we explore this kind of different scenarios you might find yourself in, I hope perhaps at the end, maybe it'll help you make some clear choices, or maybe it'll give you some hope that you could give this a go and see. I don't know, Scott, if I'm jumping ahead here or not, but I would say, or just right off the top, you know what? We would normally be encouraging to give it a go. I mean, if you think we're just going to close, and we'll talk about some specifics in which maybe it is a pretty clear decision. If it's not a clear decision, I think we would generally say, what do you have to lose? I suppose, right? Can we turn our church around? The upside to that a little bit would be huge. AJ. But
you're jumping ahead.
Okay. I'm too excited about it.
Too excited. Yeah. Well, so let's start with this maybe initial premise, because I think that one of the heart or one of the fundamental questions behind the question when we hear this is, how do we know we're too far gone? Like, are there any standard metrics that we could use to say, okay, it's past the point of no return? We're going to be using throughout this episode sort of a health analogy, a physical health analogy. And so you might say, how do we know when there's not a pulse anymore? How do we know that this thing is in a critical state? We need to get the cart out here to shock this thing, And so that's a hard thing to define, because there are different situations where two churches, the numbers might be exactly the same, but one is definitely needing to close and the other one definitely doesn't. So I'm going to speak in generalities here. The number one thing I would say is the church needs critical mass, and specifically critical mass that is energized and willing to put in the effort to help the church turn around. So what does critical mass look like? Again, that's going to vary, but I'm going to say generally we're talking under 30 people, and the vast majority of those people are apathetic, or they simply don't have the energy. Maybe they're all in their 80s and they simply don't have the energy to focus on revitalization. So that's a generality. I've worked with churches that have 30 people in them, and they did exceedingly well. So I'm not giving you a hard and fast number. I'm trying to paint a picture, which is a church that is roughly under 30 and apathetic. One thing that doesn't really play into this, in my opinion, AJ, and you might have a different one, is money. Certainly, revitalization becomes almost impossible if there's no money. But just because there is money doesn't mean that the church can turn around. So that you can have piles of cash and it'd still be dead.
Yeah, I think by those previous metrics that you mentioned, mostly less probably on the size. That does matter. but more so on the apathy side or energy or willingness to change, all of those things. No amount of money is going to fix that.
Mhm.
So, and we'll talk about consequences or what, options later in the podcast. But yeah, I'm with you. One thing about this, Scott, I don't know, probably 5-6 years ago, we used to speak to critical mass numbers being more around 50. And you and I have both had experiences with churches under 50 that did make some positive changes, and I think, to some extent changed their trajectory. And so, we are talking more in the 30s now, I think, than we used to, which to me is good. I like that we've seen that and had that experience.
It's hard. I mean, when you're talking 30 people, I need 30 people who are willing to do something. I mean, you're still going to have some people. There's going to be on a curve. There are going to be some people who are less engaged and some who are more engaged. But in the middle there, you need to have people who are like committed and wanting to see the church do well. And they're open to change and to doing new things, or to allowing outside people to come in and help with certain things. Like there has to be that willingness there. And if there's no willingness there and you're under 30 people, and then the triple whammy, if you also don't have any money, at that point you're going, okay, there's not a lot that we can do here. So money is, to me, the X factor. It's like, if you don't have it, it definitely hurts you. If you do have it, it can help you, but it won't automatically.
Yeah. You cannot buy church health, and
That's a church health store.
You cannot buy people's attitudes. There's.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. Well, to some degree, it can also be a detriment to you, because it can mask. By the time you get to these conversations, you're not hiding it anymore, but it can mask the symptoms, or like when it would have been easier to turn things around. If you're like, well, we still got money coming in, we're meeting budget, we're paying our pastor, that can delay you facing the reality that you're in massive decline. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, assuming, things are looking pretty bleak, they've gotten kind of low. All of our scores are looking pretty low. Continuing in this health analogy, revitalization you might look at as CPR. Are we in a position in which CPR would provide some hope to recovery? Well, it kind of cuts both ways to some extent. The efficacy of CPR on an individual church. So what effects might revitalization have on it? In the end, are we going to be improving in health, or has it just prolonged the inevitable? Only time will tell on that for the church that chooses that road to go ahead and go for it. Let's try some CPR on our church and see what happens. Even the question of, apathy versus energy and willingness and things like that, you still don't know for a little while, because, Scott, people get excited when there's something, when there's a possibility. And then even in that, our work happens really quickly on the front end of planning and launching into an implementation. All of that might still look pretty good, but 3 months down the road, 6 months, that's when you really get the true picture of willingness and energy.
Yeah.
You can't tell right away, and we would never sell that anyway. We would never sell that statement that revitalization is a quick fix and that you'll see immediate turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
And it's even more, or even less, the case, I suppose, in a near-death church, how quickly you're going to see things change. This is going to be very slow. You're going to have to be watching for some really specific markers, and being really clear about what you're measuring and the things that you're going to celebrate to know if that's actually happening.
Absolutely. I mean, so the thing with CPR is that it can and it does save lives. So, I mean, I think I would just start with that and go, no one thinks about CPR when someone doesn't have a pulse. They don't think, well, gosh, CPR might not work, so we shouldn't do it. No, they think, I'm going to start CPR because this sometimes works. They're not. You're going, okay, let's give this one last go, and it does sometimes work. People turn around, people recover, and they go on to live long lives after needing CPR. The other thing about CPR, the reason why I like this analogy, is that I understand from watching Dr. Mike videos on YouTube. He's famous. You know Dr. Mike? You know that YouTube personality? He's a famous internet doctor.
If he doesn't drive a race car, I probably don't know him on YouTube.
I think he owns several sports cars.
Sports car? Okay.
It's like Porsches and
yeah, that's something. He's a doctor. Of course he does.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyways, he's big on chest compressions. Like, start chest compression, and he'll like review medical TV shows and criticize how weak the chest compressions are, and going like, no, you really gotta get in there. He talks about how, when you're really doing it right, you can break a few ribs, which is obviously not great. But if the alternative is dying, breaking some ribs is okay. And when you're talking about CPR, sort of as an analogy for a revitalization process in a church that's on the verge of death, or that is dying, you are going to be breaking ribs, metaphorically. Things that aren't working, you're going to be redoing. Things that have been, you can't touch this, you're going to have to touch that. Things that have been broken for a long time, you're going to have to fix. And so people are going to feel very uncomfortable. But when the alternative is our church is going to close, then it's worth whatever relational cost you might have to pay in order to potentially turn the church around. Because if you don't do those things, if you don't break the rib, then the church will definitely die. And so I like it for that. And then finally, I like CPR as an analogy because there's no harm. This goes back to what you were saying before, and I was saying you were jumping ahead. There's no harm in trying it. Like, if you try the revitalization process and it doesn't work, you're not any worse off than you were if you hadn't tried it. But there's the chance that it does work. And so from that perspective, it's worth it. Maybe my last point, actually, I thought of one more thing if I like CPR. CPR has a very specific manner in which you are supposed to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're supposed to go to the
right.
Staying Alive, Yep. Sorry, now I'm thinking, all I can think of is television shows. I'm thinking of The Office. Did you ever see the episode where Michael's trying to learn CPR?
Probably.
And they told him to do it to stay alive. So he gets on the dummy and he goes, "At first I was afraid. I was petrified." They're just like, no. Stay, get to the course.
Well, you can tell by the way I use my wand.
Okay. But likewise, you shouldn't wing it. If you're in this phase, don't be like, well, let's try some revitalization stuff. Like, I will outright say you should talk to us. You should talk to one of our guides in the strategic envisioning process because it's low cost and highly effective. But I would say use any process like that. Get outside help. You can't conduct CPR on yourself. Get someone to come in and to help you, whether that's us or another group. You should not attempt to conduct CPR on yourself. And that is not a promise of it working. We have had these conversations with churches, AJ, where we say, we're going to be really honest. We don't see your church surviving more than a couple of years on your current trajectory. We cannot promise that this process will work, but it's certainly worth a shot because the cost is so low. It's going to be it's a marginal impact on your finances, but it could save your church.
If the cost is the decision maker, that knowing how low our cost is, you don't have enough money to survive more than a couple of months anyway. You're about to close. Maybe
not more than a month. Yeah.
You're about to close if you can't afford to have one of our guides work with you. So that's not a great, valid point. And if you think you can do it yourself, you need to hear some hard truth. If you could have, you would have by now. So there's really, if have a conversation with us or some other organization. If it looks like the elements are there.
This is the CPR analogy. It's like, it's not
right.
A question of your competency. Like, the best paramedic the best doctor can't do CPR on himself or herself. It's not a reflection on them. It's just a reflection of the situation that you're in. Is
there
one
is
where
a Heimlich maneuver that you can't do the Heimlich on yourself.
Really?
It's possible to like throw yourself onto an arm of a chair or something. Yeah.
Well, That's not the analogy we picked.
If your church is choking, you're probably going to die.
If you're choking, choking on the truth that your church needs revitalization.
All right. Yeah.
So it may not work out. Let's move on to number 3. It might not be. It might not be what works out for you. CPR may not work.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe closing is the thing. So I mean, I guess the point of this episode was just to kind of open up this conversation. Should we revitalize? Should we not? I think we've walked through a scenario or a collection of data points in which we would point you towards revitalization. If you meet any of these basic things, you should give it a try.
Give it a try.
But if you don't, I mean, if that's, and maybe that's on your own, you can make this determination, or maybe after having a conversation with a consultant, you could come to the conclusion that we should close. Well, you've got some options there as well. So, the point of this episode isn't how to close a church. It's more of determining whether you should, but we wanted to put this in there. You certainly can, if we want to continue with human life and death, we could say this is like the organ donation piece.
This is getting very macabre very quickly.
So, yeah, I mean, is this
coming out around Halloween? Is this a Halloween themed episode?
Yeah, we're ahead on episodes. I'm not sure when this is coming out. This is happening in September. You're probably hearing this in September.
Yeah, so. It's almost spooky season.
Depending on how into that you are, you might have that decoration up, or maybe that creepy neighbor.
This one comes out at the end of September, so we're
okay.
We're
right.
almost.
So those of you that are putting up your Halloween lights already on your house, you got the orange lights going and the giant spider in the cobweb. Then there you go. You do have, your church does have, you've got some kind of assets, likely. I mean, you've got a building, maybe you still have some money in the bank, or investments, various things like that. Now's the time to be thinking, how can we bless the kingdom in this way?
Yeah, how can we make sure that our church doesn't become an Airbnb or a brewery, and be more intentional than that? And so here are some options, some kingdom-minded things that you can do. The first would be, and this is a form of revitalization, kind of, but become a campus of a healthy, growing church. This is becoming more popular, particularly among the non-mega churches, like churches that are maybe mid-size in the 500 to 1,000 range. So large churches, but not like mega, are going, hey, we can serve churches in our community by adopting them and giving them new life. They take on our name for a season. We get them healthy, then we spin them off. And I think it's a beautiful blessing if churches can do that. So that's an option, and that is easier if you are part of a denomination or a network. You may be able to contact someone in your network and go, hey, we want to look at this option. The next would be to invite a church planter, or an existing church plant, one that's already meeting, that doesn't have its own space, or maybe someone who is vetted through your denomination or through a network that you trust, who is wanting to plant a church. And you can say, hey, you can plant that church here and we will donate, you can have the property plus we'll donate, some cash towards that or whatever. And that helps them get started. But we're talking new leadership, new organization entirely, not your church that they're taking over, but a completely new church. Or you can sell and donate the assets. Maybe the building's not in great shape. Maybe that's often one of the things that's sort of a nail in the coffin for a lot of churches, is they're so behind on deferred maintenance that they literally can't keep the doors open. And so they kind of just need to sell the property, or donate it. And I would encourage you to think about, obviously, if you're part of a denomination, they may own it. And so you may not have any control. Or you may be part of a denomination that you feel like you should donate it to, even if they don't own it. But you could always donate it to a church planting organization. Like maybe you don't have a specific church planter in mind, but there's a church planting organization that you trust that you could have a conversation with. Or maybe you have regrets that you didn't revitalize, and you want to sort of pay it forward and go, hey, we want to help fund an organization that helps churches turn around.
I know one.
I know one. The Malphurs Group is a nonprofit. We can take non-cash.
We accept cash or non-cash.
Non-cash gifts.
Yeah.
And I'm seriously, one church property that's worth anything would revitalize dozens of churches. And so that's never happened to us. We've never had someone go, hey, we want to donate this piece of property to you. But that's an option for you too. We're not soliciting gifts. I'm just saying that. Record.
You can make us a part of your end of life giving.
But I'm not soliciting a gift.
Don't be the church with 13 people and you don't want to give up your 10:30 a.m. Sunday worship slot. And so you're like, yeah, you can use our church at 1 p.m. when we're out.
Yeah, you meet at 1 p.m.
Yeah. Give them your first fruits. Give them the best of what you have to offer, not your leftovers. Yeah. And I would say too, like it is a witness in and of itself. If you can go, okay, we recognize revitalization is not an option for us. We need to let this thing go, and surrendering that and letting it be something that blesses another church or your denomination, or a parachurch ministry that serves the church. That isn't a failure. It can be a faithful stewardship decision, and it's okay. Like, remember that, have an eternal perspective. The work continues. God is still moving until he returns. So you can still be part of the mission, even if it's time for your local thing to close, which is maybe how I want to end this, AJ. I just want to say, we believe in the resurrection. We believe in the power of the resurrection. We believe in dead things coming back to life. We believe in a God that still moves. And while he does sometimes remove lampstands, he tells us that in Revelation 2, he is the flame. He himself is the flame, and he can bring revival to your community, to a congregation, wherever he wants. It's not up to us. It's up to him. And so, even if your thing closes, it is not the end of the kingdom in your community. Yeah. I 100% agree with that. And so from an external perspective, somebody that drives by your building, they may not know what happened, whether you revitalized or whether that's a new church in there or whatever that end of life plan was for you guys. If an old church starts to look new, like the grass is cut, it's got fresh paint, there's more cars there. This is like a picture of the resurrection. And to me, that's a powerful witness, and more so than you might even think, even for passersby that might just catch a glimpse and go, something has happened at that church. It looked near death, and now it looks like life is coming back to it. You could end up being, sort of like this disconnected gospel witness that just might be the thing that somebody is like, let's see what's going on over there. And you just never know what could come from that. So God can use your church no matter what the scenario ends up being at that phase of your ministry.
Yeah, amen. Well, let me recap. If you're wondering, is your church kind of past the point of no return? Well, it depends on your critical mass. Do you have enough people to turn things around? And mainly, are they motivated? The people who are left, are they motivated to see things turn around? If there's any possibility, like the faintest of pulses, it's worth trying CPR, because it's about a 12 to 18 month process when you work with us. And that's, in terms of timescale, that's nothing. So you'll know pretty quickly. You'll know within 9 months or so if there's going to be a pulse or not. And we have worked with churches through this. I can think of specific churches that were going to close that are not closed. So it's not like it's not possible. But if it's not possible, close well. Find a way. That'd be maybe like my other, just to reinforce that, like, make a plan for closing. Don't just become subject to, certainly you don't want the government having to step in and, figure out how, I don't even know exactly how that works. If you don't make a plan, I guess someone has to. Yeah. I guess it'd be the state, wouldn't it? The state would come in and I don't know.
I mean, as long as there's a trustee still, named for
I know,
assets.
but if there's not a trustee, I don't know. I guess the state steps in.
Don't do that.
Don't even get to that point. Make a plan and proactively close it. Like, here's what we're going to do. Here are the steps we're going to take. Here's what we're going to do with the assets. And that can be a beautiful investment in the kingdom. That does not have to be perceived as an abject failure. I know that hurts. You'll grieve it, but you can still do good with it. And then finally, just remember that God's mission continues until Jesus returns. And so it's not all dependent on you. And you can choose to participate in it and invest in it, or you can resist it. But he is the flame, and he will keep kind of creating his kingdom on earth. To mix metaphors, I guess.
Amen. Thanks for being with us this week. Check out the Healthy Churches Toolkit at healthychurchestoolkit.com, because there are resources. There are some help in there for you in addition to consulting services that we can provide. And so don't get to this point. Not everybody listening to this is thinking about closing. Don't let it happen. So get the help that you might need now, and never have to use this episode as a decision maker in your church. But we're glad you're with us today, and we'll be back again next week with another episode of the Church Revitalization Podcast. Thanks, everyone.